Hello, 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 and welcome to Monday. Monday means art on YouTube. It means art everywhere else as well, but YouTube in particular. Hello, my name is Debbie and I'm a mixed media artist. I live in Germany and I love everything mixed media. I think, I don't know, I've been painting now for about 45 years seriously, and I've always loved art. I've always loved creating things. I create other things too. My day job is sewing and I design bag patterns, so lots of creativity. And I'm relatively new to mixed media art in that probably for the last 5 years I've swapped from pure practice, mostly watercolor and then some, actually mostly acrylic, then some watercolor on the side and drawing. And I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say that I've dedicated my life to mixed media. Love it, probably would never go back, don't see any reason to. And one of the reasons I love it is because I have so many diverse materials that I can work with, and it never gets boring, and I can then bring out old favorites and swap something else in and try two new things together. So if that's you too, you've come to the right place, because that's what it's all about. So today I would like to show you my favorite 5 Derwent drawing pencils. How about I put them up the right way? This is what they look like. They are a little bit thicker than usual actually, and a nice thick core. Derwent, can't go wrong with Derwent. I love them. They're made in England, and the Derwent drawing range, it doesn't have a huge lot of colours. It was still difficult to choose 5 though, because they're all really good. And one thing I absolutely love is muted colours, and the Derwent drawing range is very, very suited to the north of England, where it was invented and where it is made, and it's because it's lovely muted colour palette, and I just love that. So my choice this time, difficult as it was, I've chosen a brown ochre, I've chosen a warm grey, I have chosen a yellow ochre. I'm never without my yellow ochre, and I have chosen a Venetian red and an olive earth. And of course, because it's difficult, I have an honourable mention, which happens sometimes in my favourite 5s. You'll see on the playlist, sometimes I get away with 5 and sometimes I just can't. So I have allowed myself an honourable mention, and this time it is Chinese white. And I love Chinese white. There are lots of white pencils available, and I've got Caran d'Ache, I've got Holbein, I've got Prismacolor, I have got Polychromos, I have got other Derwents, and yet this one is my absolute favourite. So yes, that's my honourable mention. Now, in my mixed media art practice, and as I mentioned, I'm a mixed media artist. Let me just go through some of these things. These are other pictures that we've done here. Oh, that one. That one's actually my Patreon. There was a tutorial for that. But there are other favourite 5s that we've been through, so do check out the playlist. But again, this is why I love mixed media, because I can mix things up. And what I do first in my practice is I almost always use gouache as a substrate. And back to this one here, as you can see from, good grief, there, sorry about that. As you can see, I don't use YouTube, good grief, it's Monday, forgive me. I don't use gouache the way a lot of artists use gouache. I actually embrace the muddy nature of the paint, and I want that muddy nature because I like my work to be quite moody and dark, not in a gothic sort of way, although, if that's your vibe, not judging. I like that too, but I want it to be really quite moody and these muted colours and lots and lots and lots of texture. And that's why I like the practice of mixed media. So we start off with gouache in most cases, and I'm going to start off today, when we actually get to the sketch, I'm going to do that. But first of all, I'd like to swatch these colours out for you. So first cab off the rank is olive earth, and it's a creamy, smooth sort of textured pencil, and when you then back off the pressure you get this fabulous graininess with it, which is really, really useful, as you may have seen from some of the examples just a bit ago. And I like that. And again, like I said, it's quite true to its end cap. It's not too bad. This one, maybe even better. This is one of my favorites, and I use this in just about every picture where a tree appears. I will use yellow ochre. So olive earth and yellow ochre, and again, reasonably true to its cap actually. Venetian red, lovely rich red. That could be a brown if you wanted it to be a brown. It's one of those sorts of colours, so that had to come into the mix this time. Warm grey, I'm a sucker for a nice warm grey, and this one is particularly lovely. And again, really quite nice, well pigmented, the sort of quality you expect from Derwent. And this is not a sponsored post, I'm just a complete fan. Brown ochre, a lighter version, really quite nice. Again, perfect for landscapes and things like that. Now, this is going to be a pointless exercise, this one. Trust me, there's some white pencil on the page, but it really isn't much point. However, it works as a resist as well. It is there, just to prove that. Right, so the next thing now is to put our pencils aside for just a sec, because as a mixed media artist, I always start out with my extremely messy gouache palette here, which I never wash, and it just keeps on giving. So I'm using a DecoArt Traditions Dome Blender, number 10. You've probably seen this before. If you check out my other videos, you will absolutely see the Dome Blender. I like it because I can scrub the paint around, and I'm using a Stillman & Burn sketchbook. It's the Beta series, which is nice. I really like it. Not keen on the size. I cleverly didn't look at the size I was buying, and I bought one that's a little bit smaller than ideal, but it's all right, and we can use it for all sorts of things. So anyway, I like this scrubby brush because I don't have to mind the tip. So first load up, it holds quite a lot of water, and I'm going to go for a bit of a grey sky. As I said, I can just scrub it on, just adding paint. Add a bit of water, not too much water, because the brush holds huge amounts. Sort of nothing much in the sky there. I rarely do a completely smooth looking sky. It's just not, it's not my jam. Normally I wouldn't wash the brush either. I keep on piling the colours on with whatever happens to be on the brush, which works particularly well when you're moving from back to front in a picture and you want some of the details to sort of go into the background. Get some, just some sort of trees happening here. Probably a bit of green wouldn't hurt, considering we've just admitted to them being trees. Now, rather than washing the brush, I'm wiping the brush because I want some of what's on there to create more texture. Even though I'm painting quite quickly, this is actually real time, so hence I'm telling you what I'm doing. So yeah, it's not sped up or anything like that. Next thing, just keeping with those browns, and add a little bit of apricot. Quite dry actually, this one, considering I'm painting what is going to turn in to a water scene. That's ironic. I want that dry fluffiness as well. Now I've managed to cleverly mark that, so let's turn that into a tree. There isn't a tree there, but now there is. Okay, then just deepen some of these. With fluff there. And what have we got down here? A slightly lighter green. I might have to add a little bit of water there. My gouache box just lasts. It sits there until I'm ready to use it. Then I spray it with a bit of water, or else just go straight in with my colours. And it works really quite well, actually, this way, I find. This doesn't look like much at the moment, but do not forget that if you're new to this sort of thing and if you're here to learn, all paintings go through a bit of an ugly stage. You can't do much about it except keep working. And you've got to trust the process to a certain extent. Sometimes you're proven wrong. And the process says, well, look, you know, it wasn't an ugly stage. This painting just wasn't. It's not your day. Sometimes that happens too. But mostly painting goes through an ugly stage and you've just sort of got to work through it. I'm just going to close up some of these gaps here now. A bit of dark brown. Indeterminate dark brown. I have no idea what colours these are or even what brand they are anymore. All I know for absolute sure is that they're gouache. So if you've got some gouache paints, this will work. I also like this brush because I can push it like so and get some texture going, which will become apparent as I use the coloured pencils, which is coming up, I promise. Just sort of get some texture there. And I don't have to worry about the tip of the brush. And this is the good thing. And that's why I like these. DecoArt is an American company and I'm in Europe. Quite hard to get here, but not impossible. My advice to you would be to go on the DecoArt website and just ask the people there, and I'm sure they will be very, very helpful and tell you where you can find some of their brushes. Here again, just bigging up some of these colours now, adding to the richness of what's there in the background. And always after some texture where I can find it. Since I've decided to put a tree there, we might as well use it. Right. I reckon that's about it for the gouache layer of this picture. So I shall dry that and then I shall return. See you very shortly. Okay, as promised, it's all lovely and dry, and it's an important point to mention here actually that if you're having trouble with using layers of mixed media and you find that the coloured pencils won't work over excuse me, won't work over paint, it's because your paint might not be completely dry. So if you feel it and it feels cool, see that feels cooler than this side is drier. If it feels cool, it's wet. It's not completely dry. If it feels room temperature or warm, it is dry. So as a rule of thumb, I'm going to risk this and see how we go. And this is where the colours come in. Now, I will be using other materials as well, as I already have. And as I said, mixed media, so use absolutely everything. But I will try to showcase all of these colours that I've chosen, because otherwise it would be really embarrassing. The sky. We don't need to do much to that. That's done and I'm quite happy with that, and I don't want to ruin it. So not fiddling is the important thing here. The next thing, I'm going to take some olive earth and just on the edges of the trees start to create some highlights. And you won't see these very much because of the style of painting and all the colours I've got, but you'll see them in a minute. They'll become apparent very shortly, I promise. A little bit there. The darker the gouache is, the more you'll notice. So at this point, don't forget to give me a like and subscribe if you like what you see here. It really helps my channel to grow. And if you particularly like what I'm doing, consider joining my Patreon. The details are in the description box below. And yeah, so you can learn to paint like this a little bit slower, a bit more detail. That was olive earth. This one is yellow ochre. And I'm doing exactly the same thing over the top, but this time I'm extending it onto the sky just a little bit, because what this does is gives the impression of the sun, what sun there is in a grey sky like this, but let's say the light shining through the tops of the trees. And I'm not sure if that comes out on camera. I hope so, since that's the whole point of a video. yeah, this one is, it's just highlighting the trees beautifully on the top with just a little bit of subtle character. And over here we can do the same, just here and there, and then come down a bit, because sometimes the light shines through the trees a bit differently in different places depending on how thick the leaves are. But this is why I like the undercoat of gouache to be quite so scrubby, because you can do things with it. And then of course there will be some trunks and things like that to the trees. I'm going to use the Venetian red for that and just colour those in the bottom. I may or may not, I think I probably may go back over these with a darker pencil in a second, because I like the red, but I want a little bit of dark character in there as well, just to accentuate that. Then swapping to brown ochre to come here and using the pencil on its side to give some random sorts of texture here. Because this is sort of, it's a watercourse, and this is a little bit of sort of waterweed type stuff, sedge in Norfolk. And the water, you can see here, will be the grey part that's reflecting the sky. So I can come in with the Chinese white and make that a little bit lighter. Also come in with the warm grey and then make the darker parts of the sky reflect in the water. Normally when you see a water reflection, it will be slightly darker than real life. But of course, in a quick sketch like this, you don't have to be too concerned. If it gets a little bit too dark, you can come back in. Oh, don't forget to drop the pencil. You can come back in and push it back with the Chinese white. And that also has the effect of burnishing the grey a little bit more too. Okay, olive earth. Let's put some colours in here. This is the edge of the water reeds sort of thing. A little bit here in the water. I'm pretty sure my desk is not completely level. Anything I put on it will end up running away from me. So giving some textures, pushing the pencil just to make some marks. Maybe swap that out to the Venetian red. And on the front here, we need a bit of texture where there's a little bit of a different sort of water weed here in the front. It's almost like a mossy sort of thing. So first of all, I'm going in with some olive earth, then coming back in with the yellow ochre, which both burnishes the olive earth. Anytime you use a lighter medium over a darker one like this, a lighter pencil over a darker one, for example, you'll burnish what's underneath it, and it just gives it some texture. Now, what I feel is needed here is a marker in a brown, if I can possibly manage one. Gosh, if you saw my desk, you'd understand the struggle. That one is probably as good as any of the others. This one is, it's just a normal, it's a Unipin fine liner in a 0.1. Let me see if that's going to be dark enough. No, it's not dark enough. So just excuse me. Oh, I've actually grabbed it first go. So this one is a Pentel Brush Sign Pigment pen, because I want to just make a little bit more richness in these trees here. Just add to that. So you can still see the Venetian red. I'm not going over the top of it, I'm going next to it. bring that up a little bit closer. I'm actually going next to it, but adding to it as well. Pop my eraser there to stop those rolling. I love things rolling around on the desk. It's always good, isn't it? Okay, so just these trunks of the trees and a little bit up into the trees themselves. And I'm hoping this shows how versatile mixed media can be and how much fun it is as well, because sometimes when I was just using acrylic or watercolour, I'd look at my work and I'd think, I've done exactly what I set out to do, but somehow it's lacking something. And that was, I actually thought that mixed media back in the day was something entirely different, and, you know, using other, I don't know what I thought it was, to be fair, but I didn't see it as something that I would want to do. And then during lockdown, a lot of these things changed. Just adding a little bit more drama down here, and some branches and trunks. During lockdown, a lot of things changed, and I had more time to sit and look at things and do things differently. And that was when I started looking at other options, and I thought, you know what? It wouldn't hurt anybody at all if I were to buy half a dozen pencils and use them with the paint I've got already. So I did that, and I couldn't go back. Nothing felt complete afterwards. So it was a real revelation for me. One of the few huge revelations. You know, you hear about people having epiphanies and conversions of all sorts, and I hadn't. I thought, you know, well, come on, it's just art. But it was a game changer for me. So if you've never tried it before and you've got something in, you know, most of us do have a few different sorts of art materials in the house, but yeah, do try it. Right, I've now put some darker bits and pieces in there, as you can see. I think first, working from the back here, I'd go in between these trees with a little bit of Chinese white, not wanting to go over the trunks too much, because when you burnish with a lighter colour, you also blur slightly, and I don't want to blur the trunks. They've got to be nice and sharp, but just make some gaps where the sky might be shining through. So for example, you could go up here and go under here, so you can see the light shining through the trees a little bit, and doing that at random. If you do too much, don't panic. Go back in with a darker colour, olive earth works, and just knock it back. Make it behave. You might say, well, actually, I don't want it there. So, yeah, take it out. Likewise, on the tops of the sedge here, where I've used brown ochre very, very lightly, I want a little bit more variation there. So I'm going to go in with my yellow ochre. Not everywhere. If you do it everywhere, it doesn't work, and that's one of the biggest mistakes. And to be fair, I say quite a lot about my thirds rule, and I speak about that quite a lot on my Patreon, so I won't sort of go into too much here. So I'm running a bit out of time. I like to keep these reasonably accessible, these videos, so I don't want to go into too much, but it's an important thing that can actually make a big difference to how your work turns out. And here, just highlighting here and there. Basically, in a nutshell, the thirds rule means if you're going to add layers to your work, and with mixed media, you're adding layer upon layer upon layer. So if you're going to paint 3 different layers, and you do them all at 100%, there's no point. So if you imagine you're painting your bathroom wall, you paint it completely 100%. It's white, you want it to be blue, so you paint it all blue, and then you paint it again at 100%, it's still blue, so you've not achieved anything. And you paint it again at 100%, it's still blue and still not achieved anything. Whereas if you were to take 3 different blues and paint one of them 3/3, 1 2/3 and 1 1/3, you would be able to glimpse the layers underneath each time you built a new layer on top. And it makes a very, very different story to your art. Right. This is pretty much where I would like it to be. It's supposed to be subtle, and I want to really showcase those lovely soft colours. So that is how I would use them. See, actually, just before I stop, that there, I have got the sun shining through there, but it's jarring rather than interesting. I'm going to knock it back a bit and get rid of it, because it was sometimes it's really good. You put it down and you think, yes, that's changed the entire picture. That's what that picture needed. Other times you do it and you think, oh my God, I can't look at anything else except that white speck, and it looks like something you want to scratch off. So if that's the case, get rid. So much easier. Right, that is what I would do with these particular pencils. I absolutely love and recommend them. The whole colour range is beautiful, and like I said, it's quite muted. If I can grab out the rest of them here, and I can show you. I've got a lot of double ups here because I do that all the damn time. Yeah. So that's pretty, actually there's a few double ups in there, but you get the idea. That's pretty much the entire, there's another one, rolled away. That's pretty much the entire range, and they're all very, very muted. So very, very suitable to landscapes in the sort of light that you get in the north of England or Northern Europe in general. And yeah, so I do hope you've enjoyed that, and thank you so much for watching. Like I said, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and please give me a comment. That's nice. I love to know what you think as well. Sorry about all the ums and ahs and tongue twisters as well. Like I said, it's Monday, but if you like my style of painting, check out the rest of my videos and do consider joining my Patreon. You would be very, very welcome, and I would love to see you there. I shall see you next week with something else. I don't know what I will do next week. I've got a few other ideas as well. Yeah, we'll see you then. Have a good week, and I hope you get some art time in. Bye.